Pray for my sister po. She's now going to the school uh, on her own. Like my sister has uh, vertigo and she has issues of traveling very far. She might faint at any time, so please pray for her safety today. I was about to go with her if it's Monday, but it's Wednesday, so she understood it and she prayed all night, I believe. I think she did not sleep much
Right.
than the usual, so please pray for her.
So is she teaching now at the
She's
school?
submitting all the requirements now to the school. It's like her initial reporting, and then right after that, she will know what subject loads will she be taking and other related stuff that she needs to accomplish prior to teaching.
Pray for that. So how is your youth revival going? Rousseau, how is your youth revival?
Um, sorry. It was successful by God's grace, and we enjoyed the fellowship and also the sound preaching. Thank you for praying,
Was that on
and
Sunday?
please pray for follow up to the young people in our church.
Okay. And let's see, Jared, any updates on your church situation?
Um, please continue to pray for our church. Last last week, um, we tried to repair our our roof, and our neighbors tried to stop us. I mean, we're just repairing our roof, and they keep bugging us. So please pray for us for the church.
Continued problem. All right, anyone else? All right, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for another class time that we have. We thank you for your care and your concern for us, Lord, even for the needs in our life. And thank you for how you're working in these situations. We do think of John's sister today who is traveling and pray that you would give her strength to be able to get to her destination and do the things she needs to, that you would just enable her and strengthen her. And I pray that you would continue to give Rousseau's church wisdom as they follow up with the young people that came to the youth revival, and that you would continue to do a good work there in their lives and in their hearts. And Lord, we do commit Jared's church situation to you and just the problem with the neighbors, and just pray, Lord, that um, there would not be any issues, that the church would be able to do the things they need to, would be able to minister the ways that you would have them to be without hindrance. Lord, we thank you that you have all power to solve all of these things and that you have all authority. And I just pray that you would help us to stay looking to you during the midst of this time. And Lord, we do look to you for wisdom for the rest of this semester, for this class hour, as we finish up our discussion on part writing, that you would help everything to be clear. And as the students then apply this to their own writing, I pray that you would help them to grow in their skill in applying these principles of theory to their own writing. And we ask this in your name. Amen. All right. Before we dive into your favorite topic, I wanted to mention that next Tuesday, you will be turning in your final melodies with harmonizations. And you'll also have reviewed your harmonization notes from last semester. So I just want to encourage you, before you try to make harmonization for your melodies, make sure you review your harmonization notes. So that's the purpose of that, to just kind of refresh in your mind chord progressions. So when you go and make your own chord progressions in your melodies, that they'll work, hopefully, very well. And your part writing will be easier if your melody and your chord progression work really well. So, and then of course, this Friday is your Filipino text melodies, which should be exciting. So look forward to that. All right. let's jump back into part writing. And before I share the screen with you, let's just do a quick review. If we can remember a couple key things, you'll know 90% of what you need to know for part writing. So, number one, what do you double in part writing?
Double the base when in root position.
Okay, root position, double the base. Somebody else, what do you double in first inversion? Mayfloor, what do you double when the chord is in first inversion? Sorry, you're still muted.
First inversion po.
First inversion, double.
Illustrative chord.
Double what? I'm sorry.
Chord.
Which part?
Third po.
The third, not the third. So
What?
in root position, you double the base. In first inversion, you double the. Who else has?
Po.
What is it?
Fifth po.
No, we're looking for a voice part. So in root position, you double the bass. In first inversion, you double which voice part? Soprano, alto, tenor, bass.
Okay. Soprano.
Soprano.
Sorry.
Soprano. So root position, bass. First inversion, soprano. Second inversion, what do you double? Let's see, Jared. Second inversion.
Second inversion.
What do you
Part
double?
writing.
What's that?
Wait, is it for part writing?
For part writing. You have four voices. You double which chord, which voice? Soprano, alto, tenor, or bass? Got a one chance.
Not sure, but I'm not sure. I'd like to double the root or the fifth. I'm not sure.
Yes, so if you're in second inversion, the fifth would be the bass note, right? Bass. So we need to review that. You need to get that drilled in your mind and you don't have to think. Okay, if it's in root position, you double bass. So root position is the taunt, whatever the root of the chord would be. That's what's doubled. First inversion, you double soprano. Now you don't know. That could be the root or the fifth. You're really not sure. Probably it's not the third, maybe, but probably not. So you're doubling either the root or the fifth, but we're thinking just bass and then soprano. In second inversion, you double back to the bass because it's the fifth of the chord, and a lot of times we have like a 1-6-4 that's functioning as a 5 chord. Does that make sense? So if the 1-6-4 is functioning as a 5 chord, we're doubling that fifth, which is what we want to double to give a strong sound. Yes, Jared.
Is it okay to think of the doubling, parang, always double the tonal pillars?
Yes. So if your first chance doesn't work, if it doesn't work for you to double the bass on your root position chord, or to double the soprano on your first inversion chord, or to double the bass on your second inversion chord, then you think in terms of the tonal tones. Then you can double tonic, you can double dominant, you can double subdominant, maybe supertonic. So you can always go back to that. But your first choice is just double the bass, double soprano, double the bass. All right, and then use a tonal tone. So that's your simplest way to think of doubling. Then let's see, what should you never double? Never double. Okay, John, you're saying leading tone, never double the leading tone. Someone else. There's something else that should never be doubled. What is it? Cherry.
Third of the chord.
The what?
Third of the.
The third is not commonly doubled, but if it happens to be tonic, it could be doubled. So that's not a never. I want what is a never? Never, never, never do it.
Accidentals po.
So what is it?
Accidentals po ba? Accidentals po.
Accidentals, yes. Do not double accidentals for the same reason as the leading tone. You have a resolution on a sharp wants to resolve by step up. Resolution on a flat wants to resolve down. So you don't want to double accidentals. Now, obviously, if you're in the key of B flat, you can double B flat. That's tonic. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you have an actual raised note or lowered note in that key, you don't want to double it. All right. Then the 4 simple part writing rules, if you can keep these in mind, again, you'll solve most of your part writing. If at all possible, if you're going from a C chord to an F chord, how should your voice leading work? If at all possible, you want to retain, here I'll share, let me share my screen for this one. Just have these 4 to review. Okay. If at all possible, retain a common tone. So you want to smooth voice leading, if at all possible. Move the other voices in conjunct motion, so meaning stepwise, if possible, to the nearest chord tone. So you're just really having smooth lines as much as possible. Then, as much as possible, move contrary motion to the bass. And then, if the soprano and bass should either move contrary, oblique, meaning one of them stays the same and one of them moves, or in tense, parallel tense, the same as parallel thirds, just an octave apart, if that's a possibility. All right, so these would be 4 rules along with the doubling that you just kind of want to put in your brain. Just kind of have there to refer to think about. Then when we go through the part writing errors, these are important, but the big ones are the ones you have to think about. Like we talked last week, parallel fifths. Okay, be aware of parallel fifths, avoid them. Parallel octaves, avoid them. This one isn't going to be as big of an issue for you, but you can be aware of it. Doubled leading tone. If you do the doubling I've recommended, you won't have that problem. We won't have a doubled leading tone if you follow your bass, soprano bass, or a primary chord tone. All right. And then, of course, voice leading errors. This you can just spot with your eyes. You can tell that that's a problem. So do that. And then augmented second and augmented fourth. We know that's hard to sing. Okay. So let's go on to a few new ones. Let's see if anyone can figure out what part writing error is happening in this example. Notice in the first example, notice the soprano tone and see if that gives you any clue for what error might be there. And in the second example, notice the bass note in the first chord and see if either of those give you a clue of something they did wrong. Anyone see it? If I'm in the key of B flat and I have an A in the melody, what will I be expecting to come next in the melody?
Since A is the leading tone, it should be resolved up.
Yes. So if it's in soprano or if it's in bass, you can't have it resolve down. You can't have it skip away. It has to resolve up. If it's in alto or tenor, it can skip away down a third. But if it's in soprano and bass, it really needs to resolve properly. Okay, what about this one? This is more a visual thing. You can just kind of look at it and see something, maybe. You see something that might be an issue? You don't have to analyze the chord names. See a problem here? This is called voice crossing. When the former bass note goes above the former tenor note, or the former alto goes above the former soprano. So we have this leap. And in this case, a lot of voices are leaping at the same time. That's a problem. There is an exception to this that may even happen in your hymns. So this is not as great, as huge an error as a parallel fifth or a missing third or some of those other things I want you to avoid. This one, if your melody, the stanza ends pretty low and your chorus starts higher, you may actually have to do this at the end of a phrase starting into the next phrase. And that's really okay. We're not going to have a big problem with that. But as a general rule, you're not going to be doing it throughout your piece. Okay, what about this one? Similar issue here. But in some ways a little more obvious. Let's see what this might be. This just happens to be lots of leaps. In the first example, everything's moving up and it's leaping up. You're going to have issues if you have lots of leaps going the same direction. In the second example, we at least have the tenor going opposite of everyone else, but everything else is still moving the same direction. So we don't want everything, you have a choir or even in the congregation and they're trying to sing and then every part leaps. You're not going to have anything as an anchor. You're not going to have that common tone. You're not going to have the stepwise motion. That's going to be a problem. So you want to avoid too many big leaps. All right. That's all the errors. So the big ones to remember, parallel fifths, parallel octaves, and your doubling, keep your doubling. Those are your biggest ones. All right, so basic tips. When you get into your part writing, which you will be doing already by next week. Can you believe this? You'll be part writing your hymn, your very first hymn that hopefully you'll all each get to use in your churches. First thing is you need a good soprano and bass framework. So that's why having a really beautiful melody and having a really nice chord progression is the most important thing. And that's why you're going to turn that in first, and I'm going to give you feedback on it. And hopefully then your part writing will start from a strong foundation. So one thing you have to consider is if your soprano and your bass has an issue with parallel fifths or parallel octaves, you're in trouble already. So you really have to consider your interval between soprano and bass. Now, if you had, let's say, you wanted to go from a C chord to a D minor chord, right when your melody went from a C to a D, and you're like, but that's the right chord progression. I know it's the right chord progression. It's possible you could just go to a first inversion C chord. So you have an E in the bass, if we're in the key of C, down to the D, and now you have contrary motion. But you can keep your chord progression. Does that make sense? So you just have to think it through. It doesn't mean you can't use that chord progression. You may just have to be creative so that the bass works really well with the soprano. Then, if possible, be always thinking in your bass and soprano, either contrary motion, oblique motion, or intense to each other, if the motion is stepwise. So you could have a C in the bass and a E in the soprano, and then the soprano goes E, F, G, and the bass goes C, D, E. That can work really well. So you have these tenths going on. Then be sure the bass movement outlines good chord progressions. So you can't just not think chords and say, oh, okay, I'll fill in a beautiful bass line that fits well with my soprano. You know, it has to make sure that it's right progression, a good chord progression. So, of course, you'll use your common 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, you're familiar with from last semester. You may use 6, 4, 2, 5, 1, and move down by thirds. You may use stepwise motion. Especially, you can use different inversions as long as it resolves by step. 4 going to 5, or inversions and passing tones in the bass. And then you'll use conjunct stepwise motion as much as possible for each part. So remember, singable lines are filled with lots and lots of seconds and thirds. You don't want a whole melody that's mostly fourths and fifths. Hard to sing. But if you have lots of seconds and thirds, a few fourths and fifths, then your altos are going to be happy. Your tenors are going to be happy. So keep the lines. Avoiding large leaps. Large leaps should be avoided unless if your second note sounds like tonic, you could have a larger leap in one of the parts. So let's say you decide to use a 5 of 5, a secondary dominant, and the key of C. Your 5 of 5, your D major chord, maybe the next chord is the 5 chord, the G chord. So one of my inner voices might leap more than a third up to a G. And that G is going to sound like tonic for that moment. Does that make sense? So it doesn't have to be true tonic. It just has to be something that's like a 5 of something leading us to what sounds like a new tonic. And then it will work okay. Then non-chord tones, such as passing tones, suspensions, added seconds, can help, especially in your choral piece, to add more interest and to provide smoother voice leading. I wouldn't recommend this so much for your 4-part hymn. Your 4-part hymn, you want to be more straightforward. But if you write a good 4-part hymn, you can adjust it a little bit and make it work well for your arrangement by adding some passing tones or seconds or some other things to it as well. Okay, this is why most students don't like part writing. You have to check your work and you have to recheck your work, and then you have to check it again, and then you have to recheck it again, and then you have to check it and recheck it. So if you're not really willing to be diligent and careful, there's going to be a lot of part writing errors. But if you're willing to, you can actually solve almost all of them on your own. Here's how. Play all 4 parts, exactly all 4 parts. Then play each line and sing it. Soprano all the way through, alto all the way through, tenor all the way through, bass all the way through. If it feels really awkward to sing, you'll be able to hear if there's an augmented second or an augmented fourth or something's not working well. Is it singable? Are there any awkward leaps? Did all the leading tones resolve correctly? And if you sing it, your ear's just going to hear this. You won't even have to try. Did the chordal sevenths resolve down by step? You may have to think about that one a little bit. Is each part interesting? Now you want to take a little pity on the altos and tenors. Sometimes we can write a part writing piece and the poor altos get 2 notes, the whole song. They're on the F and the G the whole time, you know? I mean, they don't get to go anywhere. And you're like, the poor altos. So here's what you want to do. This is Mrs. Pinkston's advice, and it really works well. If you're trying to make really smooth lines and you're keeping common tones and it's always the poor altos, it's okay. Let the altos be boring for 1 to 2 measures. Then give the altos something interesting while you let the tenors be boring for a few measures. Kind of go back and forth so we have a little bit of interest. In a choral piece, we want each part to maybe have a little more interest even than that. But in a congregational, we really want to especially have common tones and smooth part writing. So sometimes you're going to have some boring parts. That's just part of it, and that's okay. All right, here's the most fun part of part writing. All right, you ready for this? You get to check every 2 voices next to each other. That means you'll check soprano, alto all the way through. Parallel fifths, parallel octaves, any problems. Soprano, tenor, then soprano, bass. Then you'll check alto, tenor. Then you'll check alto, bass. Then you'll check tenor, bass. I know it's real tedious. But if you will do that, you will be able to fix your part writing errors, or at least you'll be able to come to critique and say, I know I have a parallel fifth here and a parallel octave here, and I don't know how to fix it. That's much preferred than coming to critique and saying, my piece is perfect, and it's full of parallel fifths and octaves, all right? So try your best to find your mistakes, and even if you can't fix them, be able to come to critique and point them out. So you're looking for these problems, you're looking for doubling problems, you're looking for spacing issues, you're looking for voice crossings, you're looking for leaps in too many voices at once. All right. Now, just to help you, because I know that this is Most students' favorite part. Let me see. I don't want to surprise you with this, so I'll show it to you now. When you come to critique for your first part writing critique, which will be a week and a half from now, your critique slip will look very different from what it has looked over the last weeks. Your critique slip will actually ask you if you sang the soprano all the way through and the tenor and the alto and the tenor and the bass. Then it will ask you if you check soprano and bass, soprano, soprano, tenor, alto, bass, tenor, bass. So this, I don't want you to just wait and look on Google Classroom 2 minutes before you're supposed to turn it in and realize, oh no, I didn't do this. So just know that in order to turn in your part writing assignment, you have to go through all these steps, all right? So plan a little extra time to catch errors, catch mistakes, and you'll be happy you did. Much more rewarding to catch your own mistakes than it is to have me have to be the one to point them out, I think. All right. Now let me go back. Okay, let me try to share my screen with you once more. Okay, we're going to do this one. All right, here's what I want you to do. With the time we have left, we're going to do some practice part writing in class. And I believe you each should be able to mark on my screen. If you go and look at the top, there should be like a Zoom pencil, and you should be able to, or a marker, and you should be able to come and mark on my screen. So everybody see if you can find that feature. And I'm gonna let us kind of work together to see how well we can part write this melody.
It says annotate, guys.
Yes.
View
Okay.
options, annotate.
Did everyone find that? Does everyone see? There should be like a little pencil and you can, or a little marker. Everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, everyone has that? All right, good. So let's try. Yeah, somebody wrote something. Somebody found it. Okay, good. And you should be able to control erasing your own, adding your own. So let's see. I'm going to give each of you a different measure, and I want you to fill out the bass, soprano, and I even gave you a chord progression. I may not have given you every inversion. You might have to do a little bit, but a lot of it's here. So let's see. Cherry, why don't you take the full measure 1? And John, measure 2. And Rousseau, measure 3. And Mayflower, measure 4. And then Timothy, why don't you do measure 5? And just fill in for me the bass line with the soprano, so the same rhythm as the soprano line.
Oh, this is tension. C-E-G.
So don't fill in anything but the bass line. I don't want tenor or alto yet. I just want the bass.
I can't do this.
It is a little hard. We'll forgive you if you just have circles. It's okay. You don't have to have
Oh
perfect.
no. I don't know.
Well, let's just see how well we can do. This will get some class participation. For the
Maybe you
most
can try stamps.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, don't worry about stems. Just do little circles is fine. Oh, or stamps. That works. If you want to do a little stamp, that can work too.
I just hope that if it's a line or it's a space, because it's a little fun.
Yeah. It's a little
Oh. Oh, sorry.
And for the most part, keep in mind we'll be using root position chords. Mostly. There'll be a few times we might have some first inversions, but
I'm having
Ano
hard.
ba?
I'm having hard time.
hard time.
Oh no. Maliit eh.
Okay. Kaya mo yan, Ate Mayflower.
Oh no, I can't do this.
Ooh.
Pangit.
That is D.
That is a D.
Okay.
Okay.
That is a D.
Oh,
Too-
I can't do this.
Are you using it on a phone?
Opo,
I guess
ma'am.
if you're using a phone, it's going to be way harder, I guess, because it's so
Opo.
small.
Yes, me too, ma'am.
You too?
Yeah.
I can't do
Okay,
this.
well, at least decide in your head. Decide in your head what you want it to be. How's that?
Ayan. Ay, bakit naging G? Okay,
Make
sorry.
sure you have a decision of what the baseline should be here.
You should be C. Nabupunta siya sa B.
Sige, Ate Cherry, I can write it for you if you
Yes,
want.
yes, yes, please.
Sige,
Hindi,
ano
kanina
sa
pa
natin
ako eh.
lalagay?
Sa C. Ay,
Si
saan ba yun?
ibaba. Tama
Sa baba.
dito?
Yes. Asa ka ba? Wait lang. Nawala ako. Oh no. Yan. Good.
Tapos, ano sunod?
Oh no. Oo nga. Ano sunod?
Quarter, eighth.
Okay, two.
So on yours, go ahead and fill in
Maybe C
the
again.
fill in the same rhythm as the melody.
Pati yung eighth?
Hindi kasama. Kasama ba yun?
And Jared, if you're back with us, you can work on the bass line for measure 6. No, his is
Tada. Ayan, quarter yan.
left us again.
May tuldok pala dapat. Puwing. Yung pahinga, wala na siyang baseline. Pahi.
Oh, yeah.
Diba?
Wait. Dun.
Ate Mayflower, saan iyo?
Wait lang.
Okay, sige. Not
Meron na
panicking.
Ay, ang daya. Ano yan? Ay, pwede pala sa ano.
Ano, notebook?
Sa notebook. Pwede doon na lang po ako magsagot.
Notebook na.
Nahihirapan ako sa buhay ko.
Sige, share screen niya yung notebook niya.
Ay, yun lang.
FAC.
Nawawala yung tuldok.
Diba? Ay,
CEG.
Are you seeing the dot? Yung dot. Dotted half. No?
Does everyone have their notebooks there?
Ito po.
The rest of you have yours also? Because if that's easier, you can all try to fill in your measure. And
I
I'm
have
actually gonna let you, after you get the bass good, I want you to also fill in your alto and tenor. So I want you
Okay.
to do your whole complete measure with no part writing errors.
Just the part.
Nahihirap mo ng kodigo.
F.
Oh,
This
okay.
goes F. So, gawin natin siyang unison with A. Anyari?
Did I lose all the marks? It looks like I lost the marks.
Bakit sa suspension?
What is this, Miss Morris? Is this like a scoreboard, like team score? Team A, Team B?
Felt like that. What's that?
What is this po that I'm seeing?
Are you not seeing the PowerPoint anymore?
Opo, I'm seeing a white line in the middle. It's like a scoreboard, Team A, Team B, and then there's like white border in between.
ADE.
There it is.
Okay, I have no idea. This is what's supposed to be up there.
Resurrected. Noted. Oh,
Tama ba?
We will put the stems down. I'll fill in cherries for her here while she's. I think she at least had these two decided, right?
Can we have the score a little bigger po? Will that be possible? If not, it's okay.
C.
See, I think I have to undo it all to do that.
Okay.
Is it not showing full in yours? Let's see, is that better?
Like the lines are kind of close to one another po.
Or the
But
lines are
if
kind
not,
of.
then we'll try.
I think I just lost it.
And then alto and tenor, right?
Yes.
D, F.
Tama ba?
D. Okay, let's give altos a good D.
Okay.
And then F.
Actually,
A.
sure.
A for the tenors. A tenors. Your tenors. A. And then
See if this is any better. I'm not sure if this is going to make it bigger or not. Is that making any bigger for anyone?
yay! This is bigger now. Whoa. Like it. Oh, Jared's having internet problem.
So if you're writing in your own box, that's fine. Kind of go ahead and fill in that your first measure.
Mhm.
Especially when the bass works well, and then filling in the alto and tenor. Remember, closed position is every note coming down from soprano. And if it's a higher soprano note, then you use open position, skip every other note.
Ah, perfect. Is that a dinosaur? You have a dinosaur in your backyard? I want to be there.
I'm not confident anymore sa pag-portrait. I lost my confidence.
Okay, just one measure. That's all I'm trying to get you to do. One measure.
One measure ang tagal.
Lang po. I found the
Wait, Jen.
technique, guys.
Hello.
You can use
Help.
draw and circle and just draw lines. Should see?
So, 1, 2.
Mine is straighter, neater.
Lahat po ba ng beat talagyan ng chord?
Depende.
Depende, diba?
Ano? Ano?
All the beat po, lalagyan po ng chords.
On the which one?
All the measure one po.
Yes, all the measure one. We want 4 notes for every single. But it's
Ano
the
daw
same
yung
chord.
measure si Jared
Correct.
again?
It's the same chord and it's the same melody. Your job is already done.
Yay.
Miss Morris, which measure should Jared be taking po?
Let's see. Jared measures 6. He's back with us. You can do it in your workbook or on the screen, whichever you prefer.
So, if it's F, I'll put C, G.
What should transition a D minor to its first inversion D minor?
That's F, C. How do I need to put C up?
Okay, 1 more minute.
Oh no. Okay, let's try this. Pressure's on.
Dun, dun.
Wow, perfect ledger line. To the Done.
Great.
Ate Cherry, ikaw. Papagawa ka ba?
Wait lang. Wait lang.
Oo, kaya pala.
Let me be your pen
Yes. The belong pen.
and utter to me your inspired part writing.
Okay, chair.
Sa akin, John.
Measure 1 up on the screen. Just hold it up in front of your picture.
Sulat mo na lang. Pakita mo na lang daw.
Malabo. Makikita niyo kaya ito. Actually, nakabahan ako. Ano ba yan? Ang tawag sa fish. Nakikita niyo po ba?
Hindi.
Pasensya na.
It's blurred.
Asan ba? Hindi ko makita. Oh,
It's
no.
pencil.
I
You
think I
can't
see
see.
the first chord. Is it the same on the second one?
No.
What did you choose? C?
Gusto ko mag-piano pero hindi ko magawa.
Sabi mo, Ate Cherry, it's C. First
That's
D tayo.
Let's
See?
go to measure 3. Rousseau, can we see your measure 3?
So are you still there?
Wala na
This
si
is
Ruth.
measure 3. Oh no.
Oh,
How about
wala na.
measure 4? May 4.
Ito po. Kita po ba?
Over a little bit. Let's see.
Nakita.
Okay, I think I saw it. I think you did.
Suspension.
Is that right? So you went for like on the
Abo.
bass is C and E. Bass and tenor is C and E. And tenor and alto are on the C on the beat 4.
Apo. C, G po sa first, then C, E, yung last po.
Okay, Rousseau, you're back. We skipped measure 3. Could you show us your work for measure 3? You can just hold it up to the camera if you'd like.
Wala na si Ruth sa puso.
I don't know if he's with us or not.
So, bakit nakista ka?
He's frozen in cyberspace.
Ayan na.
Rousseau, are you there? I'm seeing you move again. Right.
Yes, ma'am. So,
Up your
hindi ko po kayo marinig eh. Mahina po yung speaker.
Uh-oh. Can you hold up measure 3 for us to see your part rating, please?
Wait po. I'm not yet done with it po.
Okay. We'll come back to you. Timothy, how about measure 5? Let's see. I think it's something like that, right? Something like that. All right. And Jared, what about measure 6? It's in here, it looks like. Like that. All right. Now I will reveal for you. You can compare what you did. There's not only one right answer to this, but you can just compare what you did with what the screen is hopefully going to show in a moment here and see how yours compares with it. Okay, I'm going to clear everyone's drawings. We can go to the next one. And Okay, can everyone see that? Here's a possible option. So a lot of you came somewhat close to that example in yours. Notice if there is a non-chord tone in the melody, such as in the pickup here. Oops. So hard to write with this. In the pickup to measure 1. Notice that one of the other parts does a duet with it. That's something super handy. If you had non-chord tones in your melody, that helps it sound a lot better than if you don't move. Rather than it has a little more of a clash. If one other part will do a duet with it, it helps a lot. Notice here in this measure, Cherry, I don't know if you got that far, but we needed the bass to go up to first inversion. Otherwise, we wouldn't have. We wouldn't have parallels. No, we're fine. It would have just been thirds. So that's optional. That wouldn't have had to happen. But you can just kind of see, this would be more for a choral arrangement because you can see a lot of moving parts here in measure 4 and here in measure 6. You wouldn't necessarily want that in a hymn, but in a choral piece, you might want to have a little bit more movement going on in yours. All right. I hope this at least refreshes your memory enough to get you a little bit excited that next week you'll be part writing your own very own melody into a 4-part hymn. So don't think about it yet. I know I'm giving it to you yet. Don't think about it till after Friday. For right now, just think about beautiful melodies and writing beautiful melodies for your text that you have chosen. So I will see you all on Friday. And any questions at all?
When is the hymn, the English hymn due po?
The English hymn, well, you actually will have the choice of part writing either your Filipino melody or your English melody. That will be your choice. So after you finish both your melodies, I might give you a little input, whichever one I think is better. I might say, why don't you do this one? Anyway, you'll have the option. You only have to do one, and you will have 3 critiques on it. So you will have almost a whole month to finish it.
Like, is it the arrangement that you're talking about?
No, the 4-part hymn, like a hymnal version.
Oh, I see.
So you'll need to write maybe 6 measures at a time each week to be able to finish it all. So it's not super heavy because I want you to really do the part writing seriously and find all your mistakes yourself.
Okay, thank you po.
Good part writers are wonderful composers, so we'll look forward to that. All right, any other questions? All right, then I will see you on Friday. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you po.
Good evening po. Good morning, everyone.